Did you know? Final Fight was originally planned as a sequel to Street Fighter 1, also known as Fighting Street on the TurboGrafx CD. Internal interest in a sequel to Street Fighter was strong at the time, so Capcom told the game's development team to name this next project Street Fighter. The team eventually decided on calling it Street Fighter 89. How and why Street Fighter 89 changed to Final Fight has been disputed, but there are two main explanations for this switcheroo. According to the game's producer Yoshiki Okamoto, Capcom showed the game at conventions when it was near release and received less than universal praise. This was apparently due to Street Fighter 1's unpopularity with gamers and the general confusion as to why the series was suddenly changing genres from a one-on-one fighting game to a side-scrolling beat-em-up. This then prompted Capcom to rework the game into a new franchise. The original Street Fighter 1 arcade cabinet, which was co-designed by Atari, featured pressure-sensitive pads that the players had to physically punch to attack in-game, resulting in many people hurting themselves and wearing out the machines. A revised version of the cabinet was later released, replacing the pads with the 6-button setup that we're all familiar with today. The other main reason for the name change between Street Fighter and Final Fight was given by one of the game's designers, Akira Yasuda. In the book Street Fighter Cross Tekken Artworks, Yasuda said the switch was due to the fact that the game didn't feel like a proper Street Fighter game and not because of Street Fighter 1's poor reputation. At the time of Final Fight's release, Capcom was suffering financial difficulties and a lot was riding on the game's success. To the surprise of upper management, however, Hagar Guy and Cody's body-slamming adventure sold well above expectations and became one of the biggest arcade hits of the year. Okamoto was then asked by Capcom to make a sequel. However, he and his team ignored that mandate and decided to use what they had learned making Final Fight to make a little game called Street Fighter 2 instead. This mixing of both franchises is one of the reasons why so many characters from Final Fight appear in Street Fighter tournaments, like Cody, Guy, Hugo, and Poison, and why later Final Fight games have small cameos from Chun-Li and Guile as well. Speaking of which, the character of Poison has been the subject of endless debate in regards to his or hers gender. During development of the original Final Fight, they decided they wanted to add a female enemy who works for the Mad Gear Gang, the main antagonists of the franchise. Capcom then started to fear a backlash from feminist groups and offending others about the visual of men beating up women, and decided to make Poison transgender would be a convenient way of circumventing the issue. Speaking with Retro Gamer, designer Akira Nishitani said, "We were mildly concerned about getting sued by a feminist group if we beat up women in the game." Final Fight's concept art for Poison has the word new half written beside it, a Japanese term typically used to describe a female with male reproductive organs. This is also made apparent in the Japanese Super Famicom and Sharp X68000 instruction booklets, which refer to her as a new half as well. There's evidence suggesting that Poison's palette swap, Roxy, was planned to be transgender as well. This has never been confirmed, and Roxy is generally considered to be female, but she would never reach the heights of popularity as her pink-haired counterpart. Despite all of Capcom Japan's best efforts, both Poison and Roxy were replaced in the Western Super Nintendo release by Capcom USA with two sprite edits named Billy and Sid to avoid controversy. This trend continued with Final Fight 2 as a pair of female thugs, Eliza and Mary, were swapped with Leon and Robert. Poison's gender remained ambiguous outside of Japan for years, which led to speculation from fans as to what he or she could be. Capcom producer Yoshinori Ono stated in an interview with Electronic Gaming Monthly, "In North America, Poison is officially a post-op transsexual, but in Japan, she simply tucks her business away in order to look like a girl." Akira Nishitani also stated that Poison could be male or female, but it was up to the individual to decide on what she or he is. Yoshinori Ono would also later go on to state, "We deliberately want to make it a mysterious thing, that question of what's at the core of this character." In pre-release versions of Street Fighter Cross Tekken, Ryu and Chun-Li's victory quotes towards Poison reference the confusion about her gender. Ryu would say, "Your looks can really be deceiving. I should be careful not to fall in your trap." And Chun-Li would say, "You're not very ladylike at all. I felt like I was fighting against a guy." Capcom removed these victory quotes due to the backlash from the LGBT community. Even though Poison and Roxy were cut from Nintendo versions of Final Fight, they remained in the international release for the game for the Sega CD. However, their shirts were lengthened to completely cover up their chests. According to Nishitani, a female co-worker at Capcom was asked to name all the Mad Gear thugs and bosses. As she was a fan of American rock music, many characters were named after her favorite bands and musicians. Poison was named after the 80s glam rock outfit of the same name, and her hat is similar to the one that the band would often wear. Roxy was named after the English art rock band Roxy Music. Poison and Roxy weren't the only characters named after musical acts. The characters Axl and Slash appear to be based on Axl Rose and Slash from the band Guns N' Roses. The Bay Area boss Abigail appears to have a similar face paint to the former vocalist of the band Merciful Fate, King Diamond, and was also likely named after King Diamond's second album, Abigail. These wacky names are not just delegated to the enemies, as the ninja Guy resembles and is likely based on Guy Picciotto, guitarist and vocalist for the rock band Fugazi. Unused graphics for the playable characters' names can be found in the arcade version's game data. These unused graphics show Guy's name as Gay. Akira Nishitani explained on Twitter, "In the early days of development, we spelled it Gay, but in America, A is usually pronounced A, which made it Gay. It wasn't before long that there were objections to change the spelling. The team intended the word to be pronounced with a short A sound, without realizing in English it's spoken with a long A." In the Western Super Nintendo and Sega CD releases of Final Fight, the character Sodom was renamed Katana, possibly due to the name relating to the word sodomy. Oddly, this naming convention continued to the Super NES port of Street Fighter Alpha 2, where Katana is a playable character, despite the fact that every home port of the Street Fighter Alpha series up until that point always labeled the mock samurai as Sodom. The first boss that players encountered in Final Fight, Damned, was renamed to Thrasher, likely due to the name sounding close to the word damn. Sodom was likely named after the German thrash metal band of the same name. On top of the name changes and replacements, there were a couple of other minor things censored in the International Super NES version of Final Fight. Whiskey bottles were no longer available as bonus items, and the man whose car you wreck in the first bonus round had his dialogue changed to, "Oh, my car," instead of, "Oh my god." The Super Nintendo release of Final Fight featured only Cody and Hagar as playable characters and cut Guy out altogether. An updated version was later released as Final Fight Guy in 1992, which then replaced Cody with the Bushin Ninja. The version was then later localized and released in the US as a Blockbuster Video exclusive. Akira Nishitani was asked by Retro Gamer about the similarities between the 1984 motion picture Streets of Fire and Final Fight, which saw a hero named Cody having to fight an evil street gang who had kidnapped his girlfriend in a dilapidated urban city environment. Nishitani responded with, "I never knew this movie even existed. This seems like this was a very popular theme in the 80s. Well, that's all for today. Don't forget to subscribe to Did You Know Gaming and follow Did You Know Gaming on Facebook and Twitter. Make sure you also check out didyouknowgaming.com, and if you like this video, check out our other videos. I'm Matt from the Best Friends Zaibatsu, and if you want to see me and my 3 friends dick around in games new and old, bad and really bad, make sure to hit up our YouTube page. It'll be the hypest time you'll have all week. Probably.